Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the March 18th Town Board Change of Zone meeting. And if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Jim O'Connor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would just ask that anyone wishing to address the board regarding our scheduled public hearings, please either use the raise hand function on Zoom or type into the Q&A line stating which particular hearing you wish to speak on. When you're called on to speak, you'll be given 3 minutes to address the town board with any questions or concerns you have regarding that specific agenda item. And I would just ask everyone to please note that our first scheduled public hearing, TC 5364, Michael Small, has been adjourned. Our second application tonight is TC 5365. And I would ask the town clerk, Olga Murray, to please read the hearing notice.
Thank you. TC 5365 on the application of Mark Saglioka. Applicant seeks a change of zone from Business 1 District to Business District. Applicant requests a planning board special permit for a mixed-use building pursuant to Code Section 68-257.1G. Site plan modifications are also required as part of this application. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Bayshore School District on the northwest corner of Union Boulevard and North Montgomery Avenue, Bayshore, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Islip Town Board, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Olga.
You're welcome.
Is the applicant ready?
Yes, I am, Madam Supervisor.
All right, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Beautiful. Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Mark Saglioka with offices at 131 East Main Street, Bayshore. This evening, we are requesting a town board approval for a change of zone from Business 1 to BD District for the existing building located at 1991 Union Boulevard, Bayshore. This existing building is on the north side of Union Boulevard, directly across from the newly built Northwell parking garage. The building was built in the early 70s, and over the years, it housed a number of short-term tenants that were comprised of single-family physicians, dentists, as well as the attorney who owned the building. The proposed change of zone and its renovations will meet the FAR code for BD District. However, we are seeking relief for parking and a reduction of the rear yard buffer. We agree and accept the CNRs from the planning board hearing in February. And I'd like to say, continue on by saying with the arrival of Northwell and the consolidation of physicians, the market for medical at this site has become somewhat obsolete. We began to notice from other rental sites that a new niche market was emerging, mostly single tenants searching for a more upscale, manageable one-bedroom unit, which encouraged us to have the design and layout of this building so that the building fit the tenant and not the tenant the building. While further to our west, larger complexes are fulfilling the need. Our proposal for a smaller, more convenient rental for those working at the hospital, such as interns, nurses, and staff, will benefit not only the tenants, but that of the hospital's needs and the community. Its design offers low impact for our roadways, schools, while generating additional patronage to our downtown district. We have spoken to several of the residents' neighbors to our north and discussed concerns regarding parking One of them, one of the neighbors was concerned about parking because the existing building, when it was a doctor's office, had overflow parking on Montgomery Street. This was prior to the parking garage being built. And we assured them that that would no longer be an issue. We currently assured our neighbors, based on other sites, that our one bedrooms yield 1 to 1.5 cars per unit, and our parking area will meet that criteria. Also, due to the proximity of the hospital, tenants may opt not to have a vehicle, with mass transit available and at a short walking distance to the Bay Shore train station. The neighbor directly to our north, Mr. Peterson, his concerns when we spoke to him was, that we manage the building properly. And I discussed with him that we manage our buildings like their own personal homes. We're from the area. So we don't not only construct them, but we manage them. And that we would work with him diligently with engineering on any landscaping, facets that he would like to incorporate in the buffer between our parking lot and his house. We are confident that the majority of our tenants will gravitate from the hospital, and our tenant base will be purely professionals. As a suggestion of planning, we're incorporating a unique bicycle rack, which has also been very successful at other sites. I would like to conclude by saying that although we are seeing an increase in rental units coming down the pike in the next couple of years, we have also seen a demand for these smaller upscale luxury rental buildings. They seem to fit well within the residential area and serve both a revitalization component and a need to those who work locally, in this case, primarily those who work at the hospital directly across the street. And I'm not sure if planning was able to upload the photos, but I have a photo of the existing building and then the rendering of what we'd like to build, which is a little different, a little more modern, similar to the pulling from the parking garage. That's the existing building, which you can see is dated. And then we're trying to do something a little more for the younger group, professionals, that has a little more, I don't want to say edgy, but it'll complement the residential and also play off of the parking garage. And hopefully they can bring that up for your view. There you go. So that's the front facade. And that's using the components, again, working with planning to make sure we fit all the criteria. Thank you.
At this point, are there any questions or comments before we go to the department?
Just had one question, if I could.
Sure, Jim.
To Mr. Saglioka, if he could. Do you have the other renderings? You showed us the front elevation. Do you have the other elevations that perhaps we could see?
I believe we sent the rear elevation, the two sides, the rear elevation. We have to ask them if they could pull that up. That should be there. That's similar to the front. It's a little more softer, doesn't have as much bling, and the sides are very subdued.
And
the one
front,
side.
The front you're calling obviously Union, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a color rendering of the front and the back. I know they show the front, but that's the front in black and white. And then you had seen we tried to say with the same color scheme. And the sides were very similar, very simple facades.
Yeah, what is that product though on the sides though, Mr. Saglioka?
You know what? I don't know if that's an old rendering. I believe the new one, because we know we're not allowed to have any type of CMU or limited in EFIS. So I believe the panel system that we're using, if they can bring up that color rendering, I kind of played it off the Capital One Bank in Bayshore, which I love that combination, but it's a synthetic panel, horizontal panel that I've used before. It's a commercial panel and it almost looks like redwood or walnut. So that would be the entire sides. And then there's a mixture of that. Here we go. A mixture of that. And then excuse me, some stainless steel panels that are in the center of the building there. And then the dark blue, that would be EFIS, because we're limited to what we can use in EFIS. But if you look at that brown panel, if you ever go to the Capital One building, it's very similar to those horizontal panels they installed on that building on Sunrise Highway.
So the brown panel is what is it? Is it AZAC? Is it Hardy?
Not, yeah,
What-
it's not AZAC, it's not Hardy. It
Hardy?
has, there is a separate name for it.
Aluminum?
No, it's a composite material. I just had the brochure. It's a composite material.
And what's
And
the
it's
reveal on that composite material?
I'm sorry.
What's the reveal?
It's usually about 7 to 8 inches, I believe.
That looks like around 4, but okay.
Yeah. Well, this is a rendering, but I believe that the panels we were looking at were similar to the ones at Capital One. So I would say they were about 7 inches.
I'd like to know what the panel material is, and I'd like to know what the reveal is.
Sure. I could send you the link on all that.
No, I need to know before I vote tonight.
Oh, okay. All right. Give me 1 second.
And then I want to know what the side product is and what
Yeah,
the back.
the side, Councilwoman, would be the same panel. So I have the brochure here in front of me. And I'm looking at technical details.
That looks like a 4-inch reveal to me. It doesn't look like a 7-inch reveal, and it looks like a
Yeah,
aluminum. It doesn't look to
yeah,
me
it's not, we
like-
wouldn't do a, right, we wouldn't do a 4-inch. That's way too small.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I have the brochure right here. I don't know if you could see me, but I have the brochure here, name of the company and all, but they don't tell me what it is on center. But there is a space between the panels. It's a flat panel with a little bit of a cavity to give you a dimension of a sort of a 3-dimensional dimension to the panel itself, but it's definitely not 4-inch. I can assure you it's a minimum of 7-inch. I mean, the panels are shown on this brochure look even bigger than that.
And then we'd like to know, as Councilman O'Connor had expressed, the side panels, information on that.
So the side of the building would be just the horizontal panels. So the corners of the building would be the dark blue, just to outline the corners. And then you'd have the horizontal on the side. The one side faces Montgomery, the other one faces a commercial building. And then the back has its own design similar to the front.
Which we don't know what the front is. So.
Yeah, I have to apologize because this brochure does not tell me. But like I said, I can assure you that it's definitely not going to be, I won't use a 4-inch. That would
What's
just
the
be
product that you're
overload.
using? Is it Hardy plank? What is it? Aluminum? What,
No, it's a
what are you using?
it's a commercial panel. It's called AL13 Architectural Systems. We've used it on commercial buildings.
I'm not talking about the panels. I'm talking about the siding that you're using in the brown section of the building. That product, what is that?
Again, it's called AL13 Architectural Systems. It's a commercial panel. It's made of a composite. It's not a Hardy plank. It's not an AZAC. It's not made by Certainty. It's specifically for commercial use.
And we don't know
And
what
where-
it is and what the reveal is? You don't know what
I
the
know I
product
wanted
is,
to
you don't
reveal
know
the
what
same as,
reveal is.
yeah, I know I wanted to reveal the same as the Capital One Bank, which is about 7 or 8 inches.
That's
And
I'm just curious about the product.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have any more information in front of me on the actual product. I can get it for you though.
Maybe maybe Sean Culligan knows what it is. We'll get there.
All right, at this point, have all your questions been asked, Councilwoman?
Yes, but not answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand that. I just wanted to know if you had any more to ask before I went to see if anyone else had any questions or comments before we go to the department.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none. Sean, if you will. Thank you, Mr. Saglioka.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and members of the board.
Thank you,
Sean?
Mr. Carpenter, members of the town board. This side of Union Boulevard has a business district-like character where the business district zoning designation appears appropriate. The mixed-use component improves the parking conditions given the mix of uses with different hourly parking demands. The architectural improvements as presented on the conceptual elevations will improve the aesthetics of this dated building, and landscaping will also be added to the site, all which go to improve the site's aesthetics. With regards to the materials, the submitted plans to us don't specify what the reveal is or what the exact material is. Typically, what we will do is ask for some sort of sample from the applicant before we approve the elevations. At this time, we don't have that. But, certainly with respect to Councilwoman Bergen's concerns, we can certainly covenant this on, that the reveal be a certain, depth or, prohibiting certain materials so it doesn't, provide the appearance we're looking to avoid, particularly in this location.
It's a very visual location. So yes, it's important.
Sean,
Mhm.
any more comments? Are there any other questions or comments for the department?
I had one question for the department.
Certainly, Councilman.
Sean, the issues that are being discussed as it relates to the elevations and some of the architectural and aesthetics, that could be worked out with the applicant, as you mentioned, both in covenant restrictions, but also on site plan, correct?
Correct. Normally what happens between site plan and building permits, it undergoes an architectural review within the department. And I'll certainly relay the concerns we've heard here tonight to, from what we've established on the record, that the materials will reflect, the concerns that were raised.
I mean, the applicant is with us. He's heard the concerns. He understands them, and he's here at the hearing. So if he's willing to consent to them and abide by them, in addition to the covenants and restrictions and what he's going to have to go through with the department on site plan, I'd be satisfied with that.
And I do think we heard the applicant on the record say that he had no interest in a reveal that would be less than 7 inches. So that certainly can all be codified. Was there anyone who had signed up to speak on this application?
Supervisor. Sean, how many apartments now does this make it if we approve this in Bay Shore?
It's over 1,000.
That's more like over 1,300, isn't it? And we don't have any knowledge right now of all these big structures going out, what the rental percentage is.
I do not
Right.
know.
The only one we can base anything on is the building in Salt and Barrel, correct? That's the first 4-story apartment building.
That category, yes, you're probably right.
Okay. And also, did we do a shadow study for this location?
From the hospital garage?
Remember when we approved that parking garage, we had to approve the shadow study for all those surrounding locations. Did you factor that in?
Not into this, no.
Okay. I think that was part of the study, if I remember.
John, are you concerned about shadow for that location?
Well, yeah, very much so, because if you're like across from my building, if somebody's gonna put a solar panel up or something, yeah, if you're a 5-story structure and you're blocking, especially in the wintertime when that sun's low, I don't think the law office was part. I don't think they hit the shadow study when the hospital did it, but they did all around surrounding areas on Montgomery and Union Boulevard for that study.
Yeah, I remember that.
Except if I remember correctly, that the east side of the parking structure had residential facing it. So other than the one residential person who's behind this building, there really is no residential around.
Yes. Could I ask a question, since we're talking about the shadow study. It brings a follow-up question. Would that be okay?
Certainly.
Mr. Saglioka, comparing the existing structure to the proposed structure, I notice on your proposed structure on the rendering, it seems to be between 2.5 and 3 stories. What would the height of the existing, the existing structure compared to your proposed?
Can you hear me, Mr. Councilman?
I can.
Okay. So right now, the current building sits partially subterranean by a few feet. So the front elevation stands about 21 feet off the curb. The rear is about 17. We'll be adding an additional 9 feet to that, which will bring us somewhere around 30. And that was the first thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, that we brought to the attention of our neighbor to the north, as Madam Supervisor had said, that he's the only one that's really affected by it, of which he had no problem. You know, his biggest concern, he didn't want what was there regarding the doctor's offices and the traffic and the ins and outs and the late nights and the cars going. So he was more concerned about, do the right thing with landscaping on the buffer. The 9 extra feet isn't going to affect his sunrise, sunset, because it's further enough away. However, if we decide to plant tremendous Leyland cypress on that border, that would affect him. So that's why he would like to be an integral part of whatever we design with engineering. So we keep him happy and we're happy. So everybody's on the same page.
So you have no problem working with that resident as you move forward with any landscaping plans?
Oh, not at all. He's a wonderful man, and whenever we like to work with all our neighbors, so we'll do whatever it takes, and he's aware of that.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just have a question, Supervisor. Sean,
Certainly.
with respect to parking, I see that there's a parking relaxation with respect to this property. Is that correct? Do you know exactly how many spots will be this property will have?
So this property is proposed to have 21 spots. 23 is required, but that's in consideration of all the uses being occupied at once. So with the office space, generally speaking, most of those workers go home at 5 or 6, and the tenants of the apartments will arrive there after they are finished with work normally, and that's after that time. So we won't foresee any sort of parking conflict between the two.
Okay, because I know parking is a concern. I know Councilman Cochran has brought this up repeatedly. And we hear from the residents of Bayshore all the time that parking is a concern in this area.
Yeah, the good news about this application is the applicant can provide more than 2 spots per unit. So that should be adequate based on our recent experiences in downtown Bayshore.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I just have one more comment, that I'm very concerned about the side elevations and the front elevation with regards to whatever type of product that they're using. And the developer doesn't seem to understand or know what he's doing on the side elevations on that building. And it's a prominent building in that area. And I want to make sure that whatever product they're using is something that, suits the community. And Mr. Saglioka, I have not heard that from you yet.
If I may?
Certainly.
Yes, thank you. So no, I know exactly what I want to use. I was, like I said, Councilwoman, I was inspired by the Capital One combination of different materials that they've used, and it's been used elsewhere. I saw a few buildings in Nassau County, and if you go online, I'm on their website now at AL13. So it's a composite aluminum finish, but I will be happy working with planning, with Kelly, if Kelly's involved, with Kelly to make this, we're trying to make this look like an appealing, modern building. And obviously what's there is dated and not something that I don't think anybody would want to keep as an architectural, icon. So I know what I want to use. I don't have the actual, I didn't get to the point where I was pinpointing the actual material. So if you look at one of the other buildings that JJ Nazaro did on Montauk Highway and Ocean Avenue, he used the aluminum extruded material as well. So that's also an integral part of this building on the front facade.
Mr. Saglega, I don't want to replace aluminum with aluminum. So I understand that the building that's there is terrible looking, and we applaud you for coming in and trying to make it better. I just don't want to replace bad with bad. When it comes
I understand. I don't think there's anything I've ever done that I've replaced with bad, and I certainly won't start that now. And I won't do it without the town's approval. I mean, I want everybody on board. I showed it to the neighbors. The neighbors were excited. Again, it's something different. It's not your typical Victorian style, colonial style building that, you've seen built throughout Bay Shore over the last 20 years. This has got a little more edge to it. So, and our niche that we're fulfilling, we're designing this building for the tenant, not the other way around. So, we really feel that, it's going to be a cutting edge design, but I will be happy in more ways than one to work with you or planning or Kelly to get this the way, you see fit or they see fit, or as long as we can compromise. I agree with you. 4 inches is not going to work.
4 inches is not going to work.
Yeah, I didn't know, where does it say 4 inches though? So I'm not sure where you saw that.
Committed to 7 inches. So
it has to be architecturally appealing. It has to, they have one of the products has to complement the other.
Thank you.
Okay, let's
you.
not, debate this back and forth. I just want to get that question answered if anyone has signed up to speak on this.
Yes, we have 2 speakers.
Okay, so let us hear from the speakers, please.
The first speaker is Cheryl Nicholson.
Cheryl? Cheryl, you may go ahead. If you could just unmute.
Hello.
Yep.
Hi,
Cheryl,
how are you?
Very well. We have 3 minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, my name is Cheryl Nicholson. I live at 47 Montgomery Avenue. I spoke about my concerns and disapproval of this zone change, the last zone meeting. There is not enough parking. Said there will be at least a 10 one-bedroom apartment. That means there will be at least 10 cars. But if each one-bedroom apartment has a spouse, a girlfriend, or a boyfriend, that will be 20 cars plus whoever's going to park for the business. The people are going to live there. They're not going to just come there when the business will be closed. I believe you said there will be 21 parking spots. When the old building was there, 3 spots were used for a dumpster for garbage pickup. As per the last conversation, Tim Matamore thought a refresh of the building was good for the look of the neighborhood, which it will be. The developer already planned on a new updated look, as we see a picture in front of the building. We just don't want the change of the size of the building or the change of the zone. A bigger building will not be efficient. We have lived here for 18 years and parking has always been a problem. Parking up and down our street, people hanging out. The parking garage is for the hospital. That doesn't have anything to do with that new building. They said that they had spoken to the 2 neighbors behind, which is Bob and Gary, and they didn't tell them that there was going to be 10 apartments. They just said there were going to be apartments in there. How the picture looked, again, it's only 2 stories, not 3 stories. Again, for the neighborhood in this block, we should keep it business only. You also said that there had to be a 25-foot buffer, and there's, I don't know, 4 feet maybe. I don't understand how they're going to get that if they're going to keep the same amount of parking spots. And as far as if anybody has children, where are the children going to play? It's going to be a cement parking lot. So that's all really we have to say, but my neighbors don't totally agree with it, and they weren't told the truth. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Gary Lowett.
Gary?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you, Gary. Go ahead.
I'm Gary Load. I live at 50 North Montgomery Avenue, Bayshore, New York. Basically the same thing as Cheryl just said. I'm against all the parking situation is no good. I live right next to Bob Peterson, that's right against the property. And I saw the guy one time when he was out there doing some work or whatever, and he told me something, but the picture that's out in the front is not what he plans on doing. I go out in my backyard, I see a view of the parking garage from the hospital. Now he's gonna build this thing up and it's gonna be the same height as the parking garage. And between all of that and the helicopter's coming, I've been here for 8 years, 8.5 years, through the townhouse, I got the house. And with the parking, and I'm totally against the apartments altogether because you're building apartments down here on Union or in between Main Street and Union by 7-Eleven. They build them down by the Bayshore Marina. There's apartments going up everywhere. Why do you need more apartments right here on the end of our block when it's a little short dead end block? So that's basically what I have to say. I'm against the whole project, period.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Welcome.
Are there any other speakers?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Mr. Saglioka, would you like to address any of the comments that were just delivered from the public?
Yes, thank you, Madam Supervisor. I did speak with Gary and along with Mr. Peterson the same day, and the plans that we had showed them is exactly what we're doing. Again, it's not going to be nearly as high as the parking garage, but it will be another nine feet higher in the rear. It won't affect or obstruct his view. He's 2 houses down, so I was a little surprised by his comment. As far as the parking, again, the parking situation, from what I understood, and when we bought the building, they were still working on the parking garage. It was horrendous. I mean, there were people parking up and down that street. And from what I understand from the attorney who owned the building that we bought the building from, had gotten a lot of complaints because some of his tenants, that I believe it was a doctor and a dentist, had issues with overspill of patients parking because they also had staff. So it just didn't meet the medical criteria. But having other apartments in the area, and as the town well knows in planning, we used to use a calculation of 1.75 for 1 and 2 bedrooms. In this instance, because they're only 1 bedrooms, the 1.5 or even 1, I think would be your maximum. You're not going to have 2 cars per apartment, and you may, like I said, you may even have people that don't want to have or drive a car. I mean, we're really gearing towards the demand we're seeing. It's really a niche, almost like a boutique apartment for those who work at the hospital. So I don't think, I don't feel the parking is really an issue. I know we'll contain our own parking. I'm not concerned about that based on the past complexes that we've built over the last 20, 30 years. And we certainly want to be good neighbors. So we don't want to, have something that's unappealing. And I agree with Councilwoman that, we'll work with them to design something that's that meets everybody's satisfaction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for the department or the applicant?
Just one more comment to Sean. Sean, if you can tell me that when they go in for site plan approval, that we can monitor what goes on the side of that building and that brown portion of the front of the building, that we still have teeth in it. That would make me happy.
We do. In the covenants, the elevations are subject to the review and approval of the department. I'll make sure everyone's aware of, the conversations we had at this hearing.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Based on some of the comments that were made and the questions that Councilman O'Connor asked and were answered, and the fact that the applicant put on the record that to the Councilwoman's concern about the width of the siding, the reveal rather, I feel confident that there is a commitment. I mean, I can't remember ever having a developer or an applicant say on the record that they're working with the neighbor on a landscaping plan and making that kind of commitment. And, I know that we all have confidence in the department working with the various applicants to make sure that they do follow whatever has been put in place. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Have to
And
close the public hearing and
Close the public hearing and approve the application, yes.
okay, so we have a motion
Second.
to close the public hearing by Councilman Bergen with a second from Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you, madam.
that motion did include the neg deck, right, Councilwoman?
I'm sorry, yes, that motion included the negative declaration and closing the public hearing and adopting the application, yes.
Yeah, no, I think you did say it, so we're good.
I did, I motioned, so someone else.
Yes, yes, we heard you. Thank you. All right, the final item tonight is TC 5366, Town Board's own motion to rescind all covenants and restrictions associated with TC 5144. I would ask the town clerk to please read the hearing notice.
Thank you. The application TC 5366 is the town board's own motion to rescind all covenants and restrictions associated with TC 5144. The environmental impacts will be assessed on this property located in the East Islip School District on the northwest corner of Union Boulevard and Carlton Avenue through lot to Stewart Street in East Islip, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York, Islip Town Board, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Olga. Sean, if you would, please.
Sure. This application proposes to remove all the covenants previously imposed by the town on this parcel at the time it was sold to a private party. Since then, the town has reacquired the parcel and has been indicated that, it's just not custom habit and practice to have these covenants and restrictions imposed on, something that's owned by the town. Concerns have been raised by local constituents about the lack of a buffer on the plans. I did have a conversation with the exchange ambulance, and they indicated they could provide a single row of plantings north of the building, and that any wider of a landscape buffer would limit emergency vehicle access around the property. The ambulance company further indicated that the lighting from the building will be shielded. The ambulance company is available if there's any questions from them. I will share the screen to show what the most recent site plan is. If you just give me a second.
Thanks, Sean.
So that's what's proposed. And currently there's no buffer there now. There's a guardrail and a fence.
So along the entire north side, there is just guardrail and fence,
Existing, yes.
and the plans are to,
If you could see my mouse, it would be
Yep.
provide a single row of evergreens, subject to review and approval of the Division of Engineering and Department of Public Works to ensure that's the right species and that they'll fit. The issue is, it's not terribly wide, so we can't get any species we want there. There's also an existing mature tree canopy on the private residence side, so that, further limits what can grow there. But I did speak with the Division of Engineering, and they do believe that we could fit this single row of evergreens within this space. It's just a matter of what the appropriate species would be, and that will be determined down the road.
okay. Do we have anyone who has signed up to speak on this?
Yes, we have 3 speakers.
Okay, why don't we hear from them?
First speaker is Michael Leone.
Michael?
Okay, yes, I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Sure, we can hear you.
Okay, just give me 1 second to get back to my other view. It just went to full screen and I can't see anything here. I apologize.
That's
Just
okay,
1
take your time.
second. Here we go. Okay. Okay. My name is Michael A. Leone, and I've lived at 12 Stewart Street, directly north of this site for the last 38 years. I thank you for the opportunity to address the board and voice my concerns. I've got 4 primary issues that I'd like to discuss concerning what I saw on the table of requested relaxations on the site plan, which we had to foil in order to get, by the way. And also TC 5144, which is missing from the town website and also required a foil to obtain. So it's been a little difficult finding out what it was that the town was trying to do here. Before I begin, I want everybody to understand that all 100 feet of my backyard abuts this property, and my bedroom window overlooks the site that is directly to the south. So my first concern is the buffers. On the site plans that we obtained, there was no buffer proposed at all. However, it does say that they want to relax the regulation from the required 25 feet. And they're talking about bringing it down to 8 feet. And that's fully 1/3 of what's required. So, you know, why am I not entitled to a 25-foot buffer? And additionally, the plan claimed that an 8-foot buffer exists, and Sean just mentioned there is no buffer. There's a guardrail and a fence in disrepair, and the parking lot actually comes right up to my property line. So that brings me to my concern number 2 is drainage, because without a buffer, the stormwater runoff flows directly into my property whenever there's a heavy rain. My property elevation is about 1 foot lower than the parking lot. So without a much better and costly drainage plan, I think a proper buffer would alleviate the runoff problem and solve that issue. Another issue that I have is lighting. Sean did allude to the lighting on the building, but the construction of the garage doors permit an unobstructed view from my window clear through to Union Boulevard. And currently, we're often disturbed by the flashing lights of emergency vehicles driving east and west along Union Boulevard. They're clearly seen through the garage windows. I'm horrified at what it's going to be like once a fleet of ambulances makes this their base for 24/7 operations. I believe they responded to nearly 3,000 calls last year, all with lights and sirens. So that, in addition to the poor placement of the lights that are on the building now, they've been bothersome for years, and they don't currently comply with what I saw in section C5 of the existing TC 5144. And then fourth, I'm a little concerned about noise. We're already graced with the annoying high-pitched beep, beep, beep every time one of those little vans and buses kept in the corner lot on Carlton and Stewart backs up to park. You know, at least they don't drive at night. Again, I'm horrified at the prospect of backup alarms beeping at all hours of the night when the ambulances are moved around returning from a call. And let's not forget about the screaming sirens every time they leave. So, you know, they responded to nearly 3,000 calls last year. So that's another reason for like lush shrubbed and treed buffer between my property and this and what's going to be an audible menace. And I'm really afraid of the quality our quality of life is going to suffer drastically by the actions that are going on here. Even after I've dutifully paid my taxes and followed all the laws and regulations and been a good citizen of this town for 38 years. So I just certainly hope you consider some ways to mitigate the concerns. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Michael. We hear you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Mike Rooney.
Mike?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Hello,
There you are.
have me?
Gotcha. We can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm just gonna say ditto to most of the things Mike Leone said. First of all, my name is Mike Rooney, live at 16 Stewart Street. My property abuts the Union Boulevard facility only about 30 feet, but I am concerned about the buffer. I planted my own trees back there to give myself a buffer, but I do believe the town should plant something also. Also concerned about, I guess you would call, are they going to put a cell phone tower or any sort of communication tower on that property?
No, it doesn't qualify for it.
We'll
doesn't.
we'll certainly ask that question of the department when they come on.
Okay, what about waste facilities in terms of medical waste and just regular garbage? Where would they put the receptacles for those?
That too, we will check on.
When?
When you're finished speaking and the department comes up.
Oh, okay. What about the barbed wire fencing? I saw you had listed some barbed wire fencing, at least by the front of the building, but I certainly wouldn't want barbed wire along the back of my property. It would look like a gulag. So, maybe you can check on that too?
We certainly will.
Okay. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rooney.
Okay.
We have one more speaker.
Yeah, sure.
Sean? Sean, who is the speaker?
Sean Lenz.
Oh, Sean, okay. Mr. Lenz?
Hello, do you have me?
Up, we do now.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening Supervisor Coffin and board members. Sean Lenz, 10 Stewart Street, East Islip. My property is one of the properties that borders the subject property. I'm concerned with what's going on here. History with this property, the local residents and the town of Islip. Back in 2012 and 13, things got ugly, and that did not benefit the community, the town, and the company that was purchasing the property at the time, the Balsam Restaurant Group. Feels that we are heading in the same direction. No community outreach, no input from the local residents, no support from the bordering residential property owners. Not a fair, open, and transparent process. First we've heard about any of this was when we received a certified letter notifying us of this hearing last week. When I called town planning to get some information about what this was about, I was informed that there was a proposed site plan, but I had to file a Freedom of Information request to obtain a copy. Same for my neighbor for the documents related to TC 5144. Why are these not public documents? Why are they not available for review on the town website? These plans and this motion have no community input and no support from the local residents. This motion is to rescind all covenants and restrictions. Why all, and what impact may this have on the community? Covenants and restrictions are meant to protect the community from having property developed and used in a manner that impacts the community negatively. This motion will remove those protections. After receiving and reviewing the copy of the proposed site plans, it raised multiple concerns with me on what is proposed. The biggest is on page C2.0, titled Dimensional Site Plan, under table Request Relaxations, Relief Sought. Quote, decrease minimum buffer to residential required 25 feet, required 8 feet existing, 8 feet proposed. There is no buffer. On TC 5144, under deed covenants and restrictions, item 2, subsection B, item 2 states, buffers shall be provided in accordance with subdivision and land development regulations. My understanding is the regulation is for a 25-foot landscape buffer be provided along adjoining residential properties. If this motion is to provide an avenue to relax these requirements, then we have a problem. To do this without community input or support from 3 residential property owners that share a property line border with the subject property will lead to challenges, delays, increased costs, and possible legal action. I support the relocation of the exchange ambulance of the Isleys to this property. They're a group of community-minded individuals that dedicate their time and lives to support the Isley community. They're heroes. Don't tarnish this organization by doing this wrong, without input and support of the local residents and without a fair, open, and transparent process. So I request that you vote no on this motion and request that the applicant seek community input and support and address the buffer issue with the bordering residential property owners. Don't let what happened in 2012 and 13 happen again. We can support this project.
Accessibility options.
But they have to work with.
Use the tab key to navigate and press space.
If you're not, please, if you're not speaking, put your phone on mute.
Sorry, technical difficulties. I'm working on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Are you able to hear
Mr. Lenz.
the end, or should I repeat it?
No, repeat what you said.
Okay, so I believe we're probably into don't tarnish this organization by doing this the wrong way, without input and support of the local residents and without a fair, open, and transparent process. So I request you vote no on this motion and request that the applicant seek community input and support and address the buffer issue with the bordering residential property owners. Don't let what happened in 2012 and 13 happen again. We can support this project, but they have to work, my wife and I, along with our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lenz. Sean, did you say that there were members of the department here, the applicant? Sean, you're on mute.
Sorry, Mr. Stadelman is here.
Yes, I am, Supervisor. Can you hear me?
Okay, Mr. Stadelman, are you prepared to address some of these comments and questions that have been raised?
Yes, I think I can address all of them.
Okay, great.
Okay,
And
so
if you could touch on the issue of receptacles for waste.
yes, yeah, I have that.
Barbed wire.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, working with the community, and we heard a lot of concerns, very understandable, but I really have to applaud the speakers because I thought it was quite gracious on their part to be so definite about supporting this application and wanting to work with you and recognizing the fact that you guys are really heroes. So with that, Mr. Stadelman, if you would.
Yes, and I do appreciate the speakers realizing the effort we put in the community, and all of our members, for the most part, are members of the community, myself included. We live and work in this community and we support this community. So the last thing we want to do is not work with our community. That would be the exact opposite of what we do every day. So the question about the buffer is, they're right. There really is not a real buffer there at the current present time, but the proposed updated plans we just submitted do add a 10-foot buffer. And I know that that's not the 25-foot. Unfortunately, when the engineers did the calculation, the turning radius of an ambulance wouldn't allow it to exit or enter from the rear of the building if it didn't have a certain amount of distance there. And so 10-foot buffer is the best we could do and still allow for that. Just to note too, our plan is not to exit from the rear of the building. These are drive-through bays, and we would be entering and exiting for the most part from the front. And on occasion, when we do need to get a vehicle in the back, it would be entering through the rear And those would be our secondary vehicles, not our primary vehicles that go out, you know, thousands of times a day. Our ambulances that go out thousands of times a day would go out the front of the building. The second thing is, I know they talked about some drainage issues. This buffer that's shown in the most recent plans that are up to date here, that includes a concrete curb. So that would keep water from running from this property onto the adjoining neighbor's property, and would keep that water on, 100 Carlton. And as part of the other plans, there's stacks of plans that the engineers have come up with, and I'm not familiar with all of them, their names of them, but there is plans in there to clean out, repair, and in a couple of places replace some of the drainage. So there is definitely plans to improve significantly the drainage on the property. Plus, like I said, that concrete curb that we're going to put into, put some soil there and plant those trees will keep that water from, directing that water away from the residential properties behind us. Obviously, the lighting that's on the building now is going to be removed. The current existing lighting and new lighting will be installed that is code compliant, dark sky friendly, down lighting only. It does not project out or up. It projects only straight down. Also, someone did mention the glass doors that you can see straight through them because they're glass panels on both the front and the back of the building. The rear doors on this building, the new doors, will be solid. There will be no glass in them. You will not see anything except for the doors. You will not see through them. So you will no longer see light shining through the building from Union, straight through the middle of the building and out the back onto their property. So that's the other thing. The front doors will have some panes of glass in them, but the rear doors will be solid. And again, we're not planning to exit out the rear for the most part. It would be secondary vehicles that don't respond necessarily every single day. Also, because we're going to be driving through and not backing in, there should be no backup alarms or very limited backup alarms. Also, our vehicles have the capability of silencing the backup alarm when we're backing up, and there's no risks of backing into someone. We have a button in them specifically for nighttime operations because many times our ambulances are on residential streets backing up, and we don't want to wake up the neighbors with that. So we have a silence for the backup alarms, and we use it quite regularly because honestly, it's just as annoying to us as it is to the residents in the area. Obviously, someone asked about sirens. Typically pulling out of the bays and getting onto the street, unless there's a tremendous amount of traffic, we would not typically use our sirens. We only use the sirens when there's vehicles in our way. And I know I'm sure the noise concern is max at night, and at night the traffic is significantly lower in this area. So the siren usage should be infrequent, immediately pulling out of the building. We only use our sirens on our high priority calls. So not all 3,000 calls a year are we necessarily responding lights and sirens. Someone asked about a cell phone tower. There's absolutely zero plans for any kind of cell phone tower or communication tower. Our main communication equipment is actually on top of the federal courthouse in CI. So we have no need for a tower on this property. And because of the elevation in this area, it dips down. A tower in this area would be virtually useless. It'd be unfunctional or non-functional or very limited functionality. So we've had a repeater on top of the federal courthouse for probably close to 20 years, and it covers our entire community, plus much more than that. So we'd have no need for that.
Hey, John Cochran. Hey, MVET's just put up a cell tower across the street.
Yeah, and right, but we have no. I assume an income generator for them, but obviously that's not a need for us. And our communication needs are well established with other sites, so we'd have no need at this property.
Typically, council, whatever there is one within a mile away, the carriers won't buy another one close by.
Right. Yeah, so the cell phone guys are covered already. They don't need another tower in the area. Someone asked a good question, medical waste. We do not collect any medical waste at our building. Any medical waste that's generated on an ambulance run is left at the hospital. That's an agreement we've had with the hospitals for as long as I've been doing this. They have red bag collection waste there. We drop our medical waste there. So there is no medical waste generated at the facility. We're not treating or caring for patients in the facility. We're only treating them in our ambulances. And after we've treated a patient, the ambulance always stops at the hospital where we can get rid of our medical waste as needed. And somebody did ask about regular garbage. You can see on this screenshot here that's showing right now, there is an enclosure on the rear side of the building with brick walls on the left and the right and a privacy fence in front. So there is a garbage collection, where that arrow is, and it will be shielded with a fence, so it won't be seen. And someone asked about the fence. There is no intention for any razor wire or chain link fence anywhere. Even before we added this buffer in here, which was not shown on the original plan, so if someone did get a copy of the original plans, they would not see this buffer of trees that's currently shown. we are planning to replace that fence. The fence owes no one any money. It's served a lot of years and it's in really bad shape. So the plan would be to add a vinyl privacy fence behind that line of buffer trees in addition to the buffer trees. So at least that was the original plans. So, well, the original plan was just for the fence. We since there were just a couple of parking spots there. We got rid of them. So there's no parking along that line there. And instead of parking, we now have a concrete curb, dirt, grass, and trees planted there to cover that. So I think I was trying to take notes on all the concerns and address all of them. I hope I did that.
I think you've kind of hit on most of them, but I do want to go back to the fence. I'm not sure what requirements the department has, and Sean, maybe you can speak to that, but would you be willing to work with the neighbors in selecting a fence that they would be comfortable with, since they would be looking at it if it butts their property? Sean?
Well, right now on the plans, I believe it's indicated to be a PVC fence, 6 feet tall, which generally is a superior material than what we normally require, which is a 6-foot black vinyl chain link fence with, wood stockade attached.
Okay.
If any of the neighbors want to reach out to the planning department or division engineering and provide their input, obviously we want a sturdy fence. And it's got to be within, the budgetary means of the ambulance. That's a secondary concern. So if they want to reach out, we'll take that into account and I can relay that to the town engineer. But other than that, we don't see any issues with substituting one material for another.
Yep.
Gentlemen, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's fine. We will definitely, and a matter of fact, it looks like on the backside here, we have about 2 neighbors significantly and a third neighbor, a small portion. If those 3 neighbors should happen to want 3 different styles of fence, we'll work with that. And, the first, whatever homeowner can have one style, this next one can have a next one, and the third one can have a next one. That's fine. We are on the backside of our building. It's not something, especially with no glass on those doors, it's not something we're going to see and look at routinely, but the neighbors are. And again, like I said, all of our members live and work in our community. We do not want to do anything to intentionally upset our community members. That's certainly not on our agenda.
I have a question about the property owner whose entire 100 feet abuts this property. Sean, did I hear you say that area in the back of his property is pretty heavily treed?
Yeah, there's mature trees that are overhanging the property line. That was one of the concerns with division engineering and trying to pinpoint a particular species under the buffer. So obviously those are helping. Anything we can provide on there will help a little bit, but to be, put things in realistic terms, certain species are only going to thrive so much under, existing arms or branches that are overhanging the property. So we'll work with.
I would be interested in hearing a commitment on the part of the applicant that they will make sure that going forward, nothing is done to harm, if you will, the existing vegetation that the property owner has along this 100 feet. If anything, be certain that whatever is planted kind of enhances what's already there.
Oh, definitely. We don't want to harm their trees. And we'll make sure that our, planners and contractors are working with them. If we do determine there's going to be a conflict or an issue, and make sure we resolve it, that's mutually beneficial to everyone. They have natural buffer there. We certainly don't want to lose any of that. That would be counter to what we're trying to achieve here.
Chief John Cochran, last year we did a lot of work with Cornell Cooperative and PS&G, and now the town has a specific planting for this type of areas, under wires, under trees, sidewalks. So Sean, hopefully you provide that to the exchange so they can see the different plantings, and because it's going to be on that north side of the building. Also, Chief, question for you. How many bays are you going to be occupying?
So actually right now, if you look at the building, there are actually 6 doors front and 6 doors in the rear. 2 of those doors, front and rear, are actually going to be removed, and there won't even be doors there. So there'll only be 4 doors in the front and 4 doors in the rear. Those doors that we're not using are going to become part of the office or admin area, because as the building sits now, it has a very, very large amount of apparatus bay and a much smaller office area. That balance was out of whack for our needs of office space versus bay space. So actually, the building as it sits now has more doors than are shown in this plan because we plan on removing some of those doors. It would, be covered up with facade and windows or walk-in doors as needed, and that area would become part of the office or admin area. So there will be 4 doors front and 4 doors rear, and we do plan on using completely the front 4 doors. The rear doors would only be partially used this time. It's room for future expansion.
Thank you for explaining that. And Sean, the west side of the building is DPW for lawnmower repair.
That's my understanding.
So how many bays is that?
No
That-
bays.
I think 1.
Okay, so and that operation is going to be 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock?
Yeah, that's typically
Down?
their operation, yes.
Okay, so part of the west side of the building is basically 3 o'clock, it's shutting down.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Right. And
Are there any?
I had a couple of questions.
Certainly, Councilman O'Connor.
I'm sorry that, because of the way we're operating these days with Zoom, the neighbors have left the call and I don't get a chance to ask them, because I'm looking at a site plan that shows Stewart Street on the north side, and I'm not sure where these neighbors are. Are they adjacent, Sean, if you know, are they adjacent to what's being shown in sort of an L-shaped piece of the property?
Yes.
The portion closest to the north that seems to be shown as parking area?
Yes, these 3 neighbors are the ones who spoke tonight.
Okay, I see your thing. So they're about 15 minutes before this meeting. It's a strange application in this regard. It's the town's application on its own motion, but technically we're not the applicant, the exchange ambulance is. So you are working with the engineer, meaning you planning is working with the engineer from Exchange Ambulance H2M, which we all know, and they're a very reputable group. But there was a little bit of a lag, and I saw this site plan for the first time 10 minutes before this meeting, and it does show on the site plan a significant planting plan. And in fact, the planting notes on the site plan include some very specific details that perhaps the neighbors haven't even had the benefit of seeing yet, because I only saw it 10 minutes before this meeting, because apparently H2M only got it to us 10 minutes before this meeting. So my suggestion is, and I don't know how my colleagues on the board feel, the neighbors seemed to be very, very welcoming to the idea that the ambulance corps is a contributing member of the community. They weren't adverse to that. They were protecting their property interests. And I think Mr. Stadelman, in addressing each one of the concerns, had an answer to every one of those concerns, but perhaps they just haven't had the opportunity to hear that yet. So my suggestion might be to adjourn this hearing 1 month to allow the ambulance corps to host a meeting with the neighbors and the engineers, go through the site plan with them, have all of those concerns addressed, and both the neighbors and the town can move forward, and there be no claims of anything untoward.
I'm in agreement with that, Councilman.
Yeah, I too. And, listening to the neighbors that spoke, they were quite reasonable. And as you say, Councilman, they're protecting their interests. And knowing Mr. Stadelman, in my time as supervisor, has always been very responsive. And I think he clearly indicated his desire to want to be working with the community, because it's his community. They all live here. And I think that at the end of the day, we'll all be on the same page. And the fact that they clearly put it on the record that they're supportive of the company being there, they're there to protect them, their lives and limb, But I think that's a reasonable way for us to approach. I know, Mr. Stadelman, you may be a little disappointed. This has been a long time coming and a long, laborious process. But I think in the interest of being fair and being transparent and doing the right thing for everyone concerned, that the councilman's suggestion of closing the public hearing, adjourning this, and we will address it at next month's meeting, and it'll give you an opportunity to speak with the people that came forward this evening.
Yeah, that's obviously makes sense and reasonable. Disappointing, of course, but reasonable. So yes, we will definitely hook up with those and connect with those 3 homeowners on Stewart Street, and make sure they address their concerns. And yeah, we became aware there was a buffer issue earlier this morning, and we just updated these plans to address those concerns. That's why it's literally hot off the press.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
Yeah, and I think your Robert, your comments in response to the neighbors' questions were spot on. They just haven't had a chance to see it.
see it, yeah,
And
agreed.
I think they have a right to see that.
No, agreed.
If I lived there, so.
I just
Okay.
have one question. Just one question, if you don't mind.
Certainly, Councilwoman.
Sean, is there sprinklers in the plan for all of those plantings along that edge line? Is there sprinkler systems planned?
It's, I didn't get a chance to read the planting notes as, again, I just got this along with all of you.
Yeah, I don't think, because we did this really quick today, the adding those plantings, HM didn't necessarily finish the irrigation plans, but clearly, yes. There's irrigation already planned for the other plantings, and it will be added for those plantings as well, because they'll
Okay,
just never survive without it.
No, and I hate to see, and time again, we see buffers put in, and then there's no sprinkler system, and then the buffer dies, and then we all come back again, and we don't need to do that.
No, and I don't want to deal with that either. So we will definitely be making sure sprinklers are added to that. Sprinkler work was going to be done anyway, so just a matter of adding it to this drawing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If the board doesn't object, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and adjourn the resolution for a vote at next month's meeting.
Second that.
If, I just have a question for council, if there's an opportunity, if everyone has had an opportunity to feel comfortable with it, from the neighbor's point of view, if there's an opportunity to put this on the agenda at the town board meeting, can we do that?
Yeah, as long as we're closing the public hearing, there's no
Okay.
need to re-advertise for a public hearing, and we can put it
Okay.
on the regular
All
meeting.
right, so let the motion then reflect that we will close the public hearing, adjourn this to the next opportunity we have to address it.
And adopt the
I have a
negative.
motion by Councilman O'Connor, and I believe a second by Councilman Cochran.
Mullen, I think. Mullen.
Either one. We
Yeah.
both said at the same time. Mary
Yeah,
Lynn.
yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have a motion by Councilman O'Connor and a second by Councilman Mullen. All those in favor?
Aye.
With a negative
Opposed?
declaration, right? With a
No,
negative.
no, there's no need to do that. You're gonna close the public hearing, and we're gonna reserve decision, and we can bring this back when the after the community and the exchange has had the opportunity to meet.
Perfect.
Thank you,
In favor.
thank you,
Thank you.
Council. So we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank you. And we have no other business to come before us. A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.